In this video, we are going to talk about how to take pain on a journey. We're going to go through this in a great deal of detail. The important thing to remember is that all pain when you're speaking to a customer typically starts as what we call implied pain. Well, what do we mean by this? Well, this is the early rumblings or the beginnings of pain, those little clues that customers give you to help you to understand that there is actually a problem. Well, how does that manifest itself? Well, it starts with things like the customer saying, well, this is a bit of a challenge for us at the moment. Or one of the things we're struggling with is, or it's taking us a bit too much time to do this. Or it's imperative that we do this year. Now, this is the beginnings of pain. It's very rare that a customer is going to turn around to you and go, the most important thing for us this year is to hit our 20% growth target, which represents 4.5 million, because it will keep our shareholders happy, meaning we can get the 35 million investment we're looking for in 2022. Just never happens. Customers don't do that. You've got to tease that pain out of them. You've got to get them to think about pain in a different way. And we've got to take that pain on a bit of a journey. Once we've found the implied pain of the customer, and again, remember, we've really got to attune our ears to make sure that we're picking up on those little clues that customers give us around implied pain. Our objective then is to try and turn that implied pain into what we call explicit pain. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that is quantifying the pain and also getting a timeline associated with that pain as well. Now, this might be a goal, an objective, a challenge, whatever the case may be. So let's look at this as an example. This year it's critical for us that we need to grow our organisation. Okay, great. Now let's turn that into explicit pain. That's quite common. We hear that from a lot of organisations. Just out of interest, what are you aiming for in terms of growth this year? We need to grow by 20%. And what's that in terms of revenue? That represents about 25 million for us. Great. We've now taken that pain that was implied, that started as the rumblings or the early stages of pain, and we've turned it into explicit pain. We've quantified it. Now, it can be tricky to do, particularly when it comes to goals or objectives. I want you to bear this in mind. If you're selling to someone and they can't articulate the targets, the goals, the objectives of a company or a department, I'd question whether we're selling to the right person. There's a strong chance they're not going to be able to influence the deal or organise the right people internally in their organisation to get a product or service like yours over the line. We then need to talk about the implications of pain. What do we mean by implications? You've probably heard of this before because it's used a lot in spin, but fundamentally implications is what is the outcome if you continue to do things this way? And it's often perceived as a negative event. So if you continue to spend time and money on doing tasks that aren't generating revenue, how's it going to affect your business? Implications are really interesting because they give us a couple of cool things that we can use later in the sales process. Because implications are pointing towards an event that could happen, it often gives us what we call a compelling event. This is the reason to act now. This is your reason to do anything. So it might be that we've got to hit our target of 20% growth by the end of 2020. If we don't do it, it's going to affect our targets for 2022. Now, by talking about that, you can turn around to the customer and say, so let me just get this right. It's imperative that you get this right, or this is going to happen by this time. Yes, Aaron, it is. Awesome. We've now got the rumblings or the start of a compelling event. Now, try not to look at this process as a linear process where you start with implied pain, then you move on to explicit pain, then you move on to implications. It doesn't quite work like that. As an example, when you're trying to get metrics out of a customer, they don't always know those metrics, or they can't even quantify those metrics, which is fine because we can try and get the metrics out of another way. Let me give you a very simple example of this. So let's start with implied pain. The customer said that it's taking too long. Okay, great. Well, how long is it taking you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer? I don't know. It's hard to put a figure on it. Fine. But if you continue doing things this way, how's it going to affect the business? Or if you continue spending this time on stuff that isn't generating revenue, how's it going to affect the business? Well, it means that we're not going to hit our growth target. And what is that growth target? So we've gone from implied pain to explicit pain. They couldn't give us the metrics because they didn't know them. And then we went to implication, and then we got the metrics out of the implication, which was hitting that growth target of XYZ, XYZ. So again, try not to think of this like a implied bone's connected to the explicit bone's connected to the implication, but it doesn't work like that. You've got to jump up and down that ladder to truly take pain on a journey. Now think about what's going through the customer's mind. It started as a very small pain, like it's taking us too much time, and it goes all the way through to it actually can stop us hitting our overarching business goal. Now, implication and positive business outcome are actually two sides of the exact same coin. One's the positive outcome, one's the negative outcome. Lastly, I want to talk about positive business outcome. So again, this is the other side of the coin when it comes to implication. This is the positive stuff that can happen by getting this right. Now, how does that look? Well, it's very simple. It would be questions along the lines of, if you are able to hit that target, what would it mean for your organization? If you did get that time back, where would you reinvest that time in your business, etc., etc. It's talking about the positive effects. We call this away from pain. So this is actually the prize as opposed to the pain, or the positive outcome if you get this part right. And again, don't think of this as linear. You don't go implied pain, explicit pain, implications, and then PBO, or positive business outcome. This is another tool in your tool belt. So let's give an example of all four of these things all the way through, and how we can create a funnel, go all the way down the funnel, and then pre-close on that funnel at the end. And again, that's the objective, is to unearth the pain, get them realize how bad that pain is by quantifying it, understanding the timeline of when that needs to be achieved by, what can happen if they get it right, and what can happen if it doesn't go right. And a really simple one to use would be around time. So let's use that. Customer says, we're actually spending way too much time doing that at the moment. Okay, well, out of interest, how long are you actually spending on a day-to-day basis when it comes to tasks like that? I don't know. Okay, but if you had that time back, what would you do with that time? Or we'd invest that in outbound sales. And what kind of an effect would that have on the business? It would mean that we'd be able to hit our overarching growth target. And what is the growth target that you're aiming for this year? 25% growth. Give me an indication, what does that actually look like in terms of revenue? That would be about $60 million in revenue. Okay, fine. Missing that target, and I love to ask customers this because it usually gives us an insight into how important these goals are, but missing that target, what kind of an effect would that have on your role as an example? Well, I think it would probably cut budgets for 2022, and I think it would put us in a difficult position when it comes to our hiring strategy. Okay, fine. So just to check at this stage that giving you that time back is going to give you the ability to concentrate on that overarching growth target, meaning that you can hit that 25% year-on-year growth. If you get that part right, it's going to enable you to get more reps to even further that target and make sure that you're growing as a business moving into 2022, 2023. Is that correct? Yes. If we can help you do that, is that something that's going to be of interest to you? Absolutely. Of course it is. Great. So what we've done there, roleplay finished, is that we've started with an implied pain, which was it's taking us a bit too much time. And we've taken that customer on a journey by going down the funnel and using those tools to learn about their targets, the implication of those targets, the positive business outcomes if they get them right. And we've pre-closed on that now. So now we know what we're aiming towards. Think about this in a business case point of view. You understand the overarching business goals. You understand the departmental goals. And from a job role level, you understand what it's going to mean to them in terms of the resource that they've got access to, the targets for the following year if they don't get this right. And that pre-close is just so elegant because it's like, well, if we can help you do that, is that something that's going to demonstrate value to you? Of course it is. No one's ever going to say no to that. And now you know what you need to match your product or service up against. And you know what the timelines are associated with that as well, because it's a yearly timeline, as he mentioned in the role play. So look, give it a go. Remember those 4 stages. It doesn't have to be linear. But one piece of advice I'd always give is that whenever you get a goal, whenever you get a problem or a objective that a customer's aiming towards, always try and quantify it with metrics. By doing so, you get the customers to think about the size of the problem, what that means to them. And when it comes to putting a price point in front of them, your product's always going to look valuable. If you can help someone achieve 20% year-on-year growth, that's worth a lot of money to them. So bear that in mind. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. If you have some success with some of these techniques or you have some issues with it, please leave a comment and we can work on that through the comments as well. And feel free to share any other tips or advice that you've got in the comment section for anyone watching the vids. Thanks guys, good luck, and see you in the next video.